About 12 hours ago, I came out here with a simple plan to do some pruning on a damaged tree to try to prolong its life. What it turned into was an entire day spent watching videos from trained arborists and reading on websites and trying to do my research. And I learned a lot about what is and what is not a good idea to do for a damaged tree. So I want to show you the trimming I did, and then I'll tell you what I learned today. Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to talk about this tree right here. As I come up the driveway, I'm just looking at that tree and I'm noticing all the damage on it and all the problems with it, thinking, man, it'd be a shame if that dies and I have to completely cut it down. It's a really nice looking tree in the spring and summer, makes nice shade in the front yard. We've got the little swing here that the grandkids swing on. So I'd like to save this tree if I can, but I'm not sure the best way to do it. So as we look at this side of the tree, we've got this branch here that has broken off, or this is sticking out. That's broken off, the bark's gone. But if you look up past it on this section right here, there's a hole in the tree where another branch is broken off. And what I see when I look at those is places that water gets into the tree. In my experience, what kills a tree sometimes is having those spots like this. Right there's a broken branch. Water will get into that tree and start to rot it and have that rot come down this way. I think those spots, if you want to keep the tree and keep it healthy, you might need to clean those up. Now I'm looking at these branches here, and these were hanging down till they were almost touching the ground over here. And I couldn't mow under them, and they were constantly dropping sticks. And I'm thinking with the health of this tree, the length and weight of these branches is not helping it. I think trimming these back right here to take that weight off will help prevent this limb from splitting off the way some of these others have. Because what I'm seeing when I look at this tree, why did all these branches break off? There's one up there, there's one here, there's one over here that have all just broken and fallen. One thing about using something like this in the yard is if I turn the machine in the grass, it's gonna tear it up and make a big rut in the yard. It's a bad time of year to be tearing up your grass. So I'm gonna try to make straight runs in, then all the way back out to the driveway, then get lined up for another straight run in and not do any turning, but we'll see if that works out or not. We're gonna start with these limbs right over here and come over here a little bit and then some on the back side. Okay, so starting the day, I had some good ideas and some bad ideas. The good idea was that this tree is showing signs of damage. It's showing that it's brittle and it wants to snap limbs off during a storm. And I want to prevent those limbs from continually snapping off and tearing in a damaging way. So one way to do that is to take those long limbs and trim some of that weight off. Makes them less likely to snap off. That was a good idea. The cuts I made with my high reach tree shear are not perfectly clean, but they're also not terrible. But those would be hard for me to make those cuts any other way. Maybe with a pole saw, but those are pretty high and pretty large diameter. So I don't really regret making those cuts. The part that I learned or didn't understand is what you do with the parts of the tree that are already damaged. So my thought, whenever I was walking around it talking, I cut out a little section of that where I talked about the fact I was going to use either like a latex paint or a specialized tree sealer or something to paint over that wound. Then I started doing some searches for what the best product to put on those wounds was. And I started seeing people were filling them with foam or even concrete. I thought, okay, I'll fill them with foam. And it makes sense, right? If you've got a cavity in a tree that's getting water down into it, that water's running down, it's rotting the tree. So if you could seal that, water wouldn't get in. And smart people thought of that and started doing it. And what they've learned over time, what arborists have learned, is that that bad spot needs to dry out. And if you seal it, it can't dry out. And if you fill it with foam, the tree will expand and contract and grow, and that foam will not continue to be a watertight seal. So pretty quickly, water starts running in around it, ants start going down in there, and that water that runs down in there now cannot dry out. So putting foam into an open wound like that actually harms the tree. So what can you do if a tree branch rips off of a tree that you want to preserve? The first thing is, when you go out to clean up the branch, you can make a good clean cut where it was cut off, and if it looks like it's done in a way that's going to hold water, you can kind of cut it in a V shape so that water runs out of it. And if you're just trimming the limb close to the tree as a preventative or because there's damage further out, don't make your cut right against the tree. Leave it out just enough to include the flare. It's a lot easier for the tree to heal that flare than it is all the way back against the trunk. So that's the first thing, is do a good job of trimming it up. The second thing I learned is that you want that area to be dry and free of fungus. So you can treat it with 10% bleach, 90% water, spray that off. That bleach is not really going to hurt the tree, but it's going to prevent the fungus and the mold and the rot. I found it almost unanimous across a lot of videos. When you go from someone like me who's just talking to finding a real expert who does this for a living and is passionate about caring for trees, you'll find that none of them are foam filling, and 95% of them are not putting any kind of a limb sealer or anything like that on it. They're letting it dry out, and what the tree does is it forms calluses around the wound and will almost close it over. And that's about the best thing you can do. Don't allow for water to run in, and let the tree heal himself. Keep it dried out. So in the case of my tree specifically, I need to get up there and make sure that none of those cuts, especially that one that was rotted and sticking out, I probably need to cut that off in a way that water cannot run into that branch anymore. And if I can't do that, I may cut it right before the wound. So I'm still no arborist, but I learned a few things today. And hopefully I can do a better job of being a good steward of my land. In my opinion, when you see a tree like this that has some damage, there are two appropriate courses of action. Number one, cut the tree down right now. It's still usable wood. Turn it into lumber. Turn it into firewood. Do something productive with it that adds value. Or try to protect the tree by doing proper pruning and, take care of it. But I think the worst thing you can do is just leave it alone. If that bark rips out, or you've got this big cavity and you don't do anything, your tree may not make it very long. And if that tree's dropping branches all the time and you leave, it drops this long branch and that long branch, and you leave the other long branch, it's going to drop that one too eventually. Trim it back. Pruning is good for the tree. So I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.